Our Halloween Scarecrow came back in June. My family and I have always been horror junkies. It may be weird to say, but I'm glad my parents and brother watched almost nothing but horror movies when I was little. And I meant that literally. We had a collection of movie discs, only 6 were not of that genre. It certainly made my younger years easier in that fear section of my brain. After years of them, you could probably say it was inevitable that I end up the same kind of junkie as them. So needless to say, when Halloween rolled around, you bet your ass we went all out. Decked the whole house out in decorations, both inside and especially outside. We had exactly 7 skeleton props, about 15 different old creepy dolls intentionally broken, ripped, and smeared in dirt to reinforce their creepiness, along with 2 separate life-size clown mannequins, not including the large Pennywise statue. We displayed them all to play out various acts, my favorite of which was being the skeletons climbing on top of the roof. Above all these, however, was our Scarecrow Jack. It was something my family had always done. Can't even really remember why we started it, but building him has since become a tradition. Think of it like a snowman you'd build during winter, just with a Halloween vibe. The body would match that of a standard Scarecrow, a hay-stuffed costume. Usually we gave him a Jack Skellington suit, and that's because we always made him a jack-o'-lantern. One with a painted-on face, neon red paint to give the effect it was. We never carved the face, due to the fact I protested the idea of cutting into Jack's head, heavily. An ultimately pointless attempt, as he would end up scalped and gutted for a pie. Save for the year of my 16th birthday. That's because Jack went missing overnight. We just chalked it up to some teams grabbed him, like a lot of people will take down street and road signs, and while we were definitely a bit upset about losing the costume, we ultimately shrugged it off as no big deal. After all, the costume wasn't some overly detailed suit. It was something you'd get from Party City, and the only other thing lost were a pile of hay and a pumpkin. Fall and spring came and went, and I was soon approaching the end of the school year. While I wasn't a terrible student, there was something about time that brought out the delinquent side of me. I'd start putting little to no effort into school, would leave class to get a 20-minute drink from the water fountain, and even played hooky a couple days. It was one of these days when I ran into Jack once more. I had been spending the day on the couch channel surfing, playing videos, anything but the stuff I should have been, when suddenly the fuse box must have blown out as I lost all power. Now again, I was technically in school at the moment, so I couldn't exactly call my parents and tell them the power was out at our home that nobody is at. So it was up to me to go around back the house and fix it up myself. Should have just sat in the dark for a few hours. The moment I stepped outside, I knew something was wrong. We were in the middle of a heat wave, yet all I felt was cool breezes, and the sky was a dull gray veil of clouds, despite the fact that I could see through the windows all day. It had been sunny, with not a cloud to be seen in the crystal blue shine. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine that I brushed off as just the sudden breeze catching me off guard. But deep down I knew it was much more than the wind putting me on edge. My fears being confirmed as I round the corner of the house to see Jack standing on his hay-stuffed legs. His tacky suit had been shredded to hell, revealing various insects taking residence in and feeding off his body. His head had been half caved in due to rot, and most of his paint had faded away, as his just barely visible red mouth began opening. The area in which it had been painted on now slowly tearing open. Brown rotted pumpkin guts and seeds began spewing out of the fresh opening as what sounded like gargle screeches, as the creature began taking long, unnatural strides towards me, his feet never lifting once, more so dragging his legs than walking. Loud snaps could be heard as his arms unnaturally contorted until they were reaching out to grab me. I tried to run, or yell, something, but I was completely paralyzed in fear and confusion. My brain simply couldn't process what was happening, to comprehend if it was really happening, until he was face to face with me. Suddenly my body went into full throttle adrenaline, and I threw my fist through his rotting head, only for the pumpkin's flesh to tighten, closing around my hand and ensuring it as he reached up, grabbing my throat. Hundreds of thin pieces of straw pressing up against it like needles. I thought he was going to pierce right through my neck. In a final act of desperation, I used my free hand, slowly forced my palm between my trapped hand and the rotting pumpkin, before prying upwards with all my strength. It was a rotting fruit, yet it felt like I was trying to tear an iron-covered phone book in half. My fingers literally started to bleed to the amount of force I was putting in, but my adrenaline was on full blast, and all I could think of was freeing myself. Its loud, gurgly screeches intensified, and its sharp grit tightened until suddenly everything went black. When I came to, I was laying in front of the completely undamaged fuse box, as the hot summer sun beamed down on me. I shot up and frantically scanned my surroundings, seeing nothing but crystal blue skies. I let out a large sigh of relief, chalking it up to a bizarre dream as I began to rub my face to try and bring myself back to reality. To feel a slimy substance begin to coat my face, I could feel myself break into a cold sweat as I looked down to see my shaky hand, still covered in rotten pumpkin guts.